Okay, so I really wanted to do this webinar for people because I feel like cumulative review is the thing that really gets left out. And I think there's just so much on our plates that we just don't really know how to do what seems like one more thing. And for me, though, cumulative review is absolutely essential. It is something that if I had to choose, I would probably choose cumulative review over doing a lot of other different things. So we're going to talk about what cumulative review looks like in the 3 through 5 sector. And then tomorrow, if you are available, like if you're an interventionist or an admin, tomorrow we're going to talk about what this looks like for K through 2. So just a little bit about me. My name is Savannah Campbell. I am a K through 5 reading specialist in Gloucester County, Virginia, which is where I am from. I am about to start my 13th year teaching here on Wednesday, and I'm very excited and also kind of sad that summer is over. I have two, I don't know why it's blurry. I have 2 master's degrees. One is in elementary education and the other one's as a reading specialist, but neither one of those degrees really taught me how to teach kids how to read. And so I've been on this like journey since then on how to just be better for my students. And so I've been Orton Gillingham trained through the associate level. So the second 30 hours was the morphology aspect. I've done both volumes of letters. I've done Reading Teacher's Top 10 tool. So I just really want to do everything I can for the sake of kids, because like many of you, I was doing everything I was told, and then somehow my kids weren't making any progress. And so I had to reevaluate what I was doing. So I also wanted to give a little plug to something else that I do. I am also one of the co-hosts and founders of Unlocking SOAR. I don't know if any of you have been to one of our Unlocking SOAR events. If you'd have, I'd love to know. But Unlocking SOAR is a, sorry, let me try to pull the chat back up real quick. So Unlocking SOAR, that didn't do it. Unlocking SOAR is an online virtual professional development that I do with Christina Winter and Amy Burkholder, and we do it 3 times a year. And what we're doing when we are doing this is we are really trying to provide affordable professional development to teachers that can be applicable like immediately. That's really been like our motto moving through this is we want teachers to be able to afford it, and we want it to be something that you can do right away. Oh, I love this. I love that so many of you are saying that you've been there and that you enjoy it. Thank you so much for coming. We're going to have another one in October. Sorry, one last little plug for Unlocking SOAR. For the first time coming up, we're going to have an English Learner Summit, and it's going to be pre-recorded videos focused around our English learners. So I'm really excited about that. But yeah, if you're not following me on Instagram, you can follow me at Campbell Creates Readers. You can also follow our Unlocking SOAR account. If the posts on there sound a little bit like me, that's because a lot of times they are me. All right, so really tonight, one objective. We are about to start school again, and you don't have time for nonsense. You don't have time for me to waste your time on things that aren't going to matter for your kids. So what we are going to do is we are going to explore some concrete ways that we can review reading and spelling in the upper elementary grades. Now, what does that look like though? Like we have so much information out there. We have so much information out there about what phonics instruction looks like in K through 2, right? But then it's almost like it falls off the map, right? Like what happens after K through 2? And truthfully, the answer lies in morphology. If you happen to be on a computer and you have your phone nearby, if you scan that QR code, it will take you to a blog post that I just wrote about morphology. And if you do not have it, I will try to put it in the chat real quick. So morphology is essentially the study of morphemes. A morpheme is a unit that holds meaning. So where in the primary grades, we're really focused on that sound symbol correspondence, like teaching them that AI represents A, or teaching them that EE represents E. But we have to get past single syllable words. And if you are here and you are teaching 3 through 5, you know that we cannot stay forever in the land of single syllable words, because 80%, y'all, 80% of the words that we read and spell in our language are multisyllabic. And so we have got to get to a point where we're teaching multisyllabic words to our kids. And so today, what I really want to share with you is how I do it. So I feel like, and I don't know if y'all feel this way too, but I feel like there's like nothing out there for morphology, right? Like it's like, okay, everybody tells you you have to have a phonics scope and sequence, you have to do X, Y, and Z. And then by the time we get to morphology, it's like, okay, you just do you, boo-boo. And there's like a workbook somewhere that you can buy. And I just kept thinking, like, this isn't right. This isn't working for my kids. And so what I'm sharing with you this evening are things that I have done with my students over the past year, things that I have made with them. I have a folder that I'm going to be sharing with you. So I'm really excited to talk about these things. So in a morphology lesson, this is how I handle it. What I do is this, and I'm going to go over these. I start with the sound deck. Then we go into writing our ABCs. We review reading and spelling. We introduce and practice a new morphology rule. And then after that, we do comprehension work. And this is kind of all of this is what I do in a 30-minute lesson. I do not spend 30 minutes a day on morphology. That is including my comprehension work. So tonight, we're really going to focus on 1, 3, and 4. We're going to be focusing on the review. If, as I'm going through this, you have any question for me, please stop. I want to help you. Sorry, please stop me. Like, type it in the comments. I want to be here to help you because I know how difficult it can be when nobody really gives you any direction on how to teach this. So this is what I am always thinking when it comes to cumulative review. I'm always thinking, are my children reading and spelling enough to reach automaticity, right? And even further, when we're talking about morphology, are my children reading and spelling enough so that they are having this like generative vocabulary, so that then when they see the prefix con in a word, they automatically recognize that as a piece of meaning that means together. That's what we want. We want our kids to be able to efficiently read words, but we also want them to be able to look at a word and to derive meaning from it from the morphemes. And that is why we teach morphology. So there are 3 reading practices that I want to go over tonight that I do for reviewing reading. So remember, tonight we're really talking about how I review. We're going to talk about sound decks, review decks, and fluency grids. So the big question I always get is, well, what about decodables? When do we stop giving children decodables? And I will say that when I first began teaching morphology, I had bought this huge packet of morphology decodables and I was using them, but then I realized, like, wait a second, like, they don't need these. They need to be reading actual text. And so for me, once children have learned to decode most single syllable words and they're moving into decoding multisyllabic words, I pull back on the decodables and I begin to introduce those authentic texts again. I do a lot of science and social studies text in my intervention groups. So I just think that we have to keep in mind that the end goal is not can they read a decodable, it's can they read any text in front of them. So it gets tricky though, because we still need to give them enough practice in the skills we've been teaching them, right? So like if you teach, like I said, AI, you know, it's easy to pull out a decodable and there's lots of AIs, but when you're reading authentic text, it doesn't have as many of those same focused skills. So these are some of the things I do to review specific morphology skills. Yeah, Lacey's talking about getting morphology focused in an explicit way. And that has been my goal too. And that blog post that I shared with you talks about the steps that I take for it. So the one thing that I start my groups with is sound decks, and I do this K through 5. So this is actually a free resource. The printable one is not free, but the PowerPoint one is free. And honestly, the PowerPoint one is easier to use. So I'm going to drop that link into the chat. So sound decks are when you display a morpheme to students and you ask them to read the morpheme and tell you what it means. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share with you what that could actually look like. So say I have taught my students, and this is all already done for you guys. So all you have to do is pull up the PowerPoint. So the PowerPoint that you have there is flattened, so you can't mess it up. So say these are the morphemes I've taught my students. What I do is I start at the beginning and they would have to say full. And I would say, okay, well, what does that mean? And they would say, oh, full of. Pre, what does it mean? Before. Someone asked, is this big picture tier one? Absolutely. I use this in my intervention groups, but if I were in the classroom still, this would 100% what I would still be doing for my whole group instruction. And we have a lot of this going on, the sound decks going on in our schools. Is, and they would have to say it makes a word plural. Ing means it's a present participle marker. Re means back or again. So with the sound deck, all you are doing is you are taking 1 to 2 minutes to review the individual morphemes that you have taught your students. So let me talk to you a little bit about the actual product itself. And if you didn't quite get that link, that's okay, because I have a link to all of the links. So when you download it, this is what it's going to look like. It looks like this, and I would delete the first 2 slides. So as you are teaching, you will notice that there are green, red, and yellow cards. I did this on purpose. So the green cards are prefixes because it's like where we're starting a word, right? So it's the beginning. The yellow are either going to be your roots or your Greek combining forms. And then the red cards are your suffixes. So I have already listed all of these for you. This PowerPoint is totally free. You just have to go download it. And all you have to do is so simple. So say I just taught my kids full, ED, and UN, okay? So all I would have to do is click on full, move it before the yellow slide, click on ED, move it before the yellow slide, and I can't remember what else I said, right? And so now, and you would delete the first 2 slides. And so now what I have is this custom deck that has just the morphemes I've taught. And once you get to the yellow slide, you know that you're done. So ask me any questions you want about this. And then as you are introducing new rules each week, so say next week I teach them less. All I have to do is pull less before this yellow slide and bam, it's updated. It makes it so easy. I do also have these printable, that's what you see on that slide, but I don't recommend using it printable unless you're doing intervention like one-on-one, because one time I had like 8 groups and I was trying to do this with all 8 groups, and it was and I was trying to do it with all 8 groups and it was just a mess. Like you can imagine trying to update decks each week. So it was just a hot mess. So if you are doing multiple groups, I suggest using the PowerPoint. You should all have the link. And this is what I start. My kids know every day when they walk into the room, we are going to start with this. It's a way that we review reading. It's a way that we are reaching automaticity with those specific morphemes. Now, the next thing I have done, and this is the kind of thing where I was like making them each week for my students, and it was like so exhausting. So I'm glad that they're finally done. But the next thing that I do is review decks. Remember, I'm giving them authentic text later. And so in this review deck, what I'm doing is I'm giving them isolated words that are the skills that we've already practiced. So I have one that I'm going to share with y'all so you can see what it would look like. I know that I'm going fast, so please feel free to stop and ask me questions. So in this review deck, you can see we've learned miss, ing, s, es, and it looks like re. So all I do with my review deck is this. The kids would have to say the word, misspell, and I would ask them a question. Okay, well, what does misspell have to do with something being wrong, right, or bad? Oh, well, you spelled it wrong. Mistake, running. And then I could say something like, well, why was the N doubled? And they would say CVC doubling rule. So you're going through these words and you are simply asking them to read it. And then every so often you're asking them a question to elicit meaning. So like reject literally means to throw back. So if you reject something, you could ask them, well, what does that have to do with throwing back, right? Grateful, full of gratitude. So you can definitely do review decks on your own, but I want to show you a way that you can do it that's a lot easier. So if you wanted to make them all on your own, all you would have to do is make a new presentation and then start typing. Yes, Christy, there will be a recording of this. And so all you have to do is like type your words in. But y'all, Let me make your life easier, okay? So I have created 26 PowerPoints that are full of the prefixes, suffixes, roots that you would want to teach to your students. So let me just open one. So you can see, oh, and this already has miss. So you can see like this particular PowerPoint has 100 words. So in total, there's 2,500 words that I have in these PowerPoints. And I made these because I was finding myself literally having to type in new words every single week. So, excuse me, I will drop a link to these in the chat in case you want them. Any of the resources that I mentioned today that are not free, I have put them all on sale for 20% off through, I believe, Wednesday. So here's a link to the review decks. And let me show you how you can easily create a review deck for your students. So if I wanted to create a review deck, I would first of all make sure that I just have a blank PowerPoint, okay? And then if you're on a Mac, you might just have to copy and paste because it doesn't work as beautifully as it does on a PC. But if I go to reuse slides, okay, I'm gonna go find where I saved. I am gonna go find where I saved those PowerPoints. And say I just taught to my kids, I'm just gonna pick some, I just taught them miss and re. So all I have to do is I click on it. And over here, you're gonna notice that all of the words are already there. So I click keep source formatting, and then I choose any of the words that I wanna use. Maybe some of the words I don't think my kids can handle yet, so I might not use them. But then, so I said I was going to do miss, and then I also taught my kids un. So then all I have to do is go back, find the PowerPoint that has un in it. I think I grabbed the wrong one. Hold on. Oh, it's in the same PowerPoint, sorry. And they're all organized alphabetically according to Greek or Latin or Anglo-Saxon. And you can see now that I have a PowerPoint that literally took me 1 minute to make. And it's a way that I can review the skills that I've taught. And then all you need to do is save this. So since I have 8 groups, what I do is I save it as like group 1 review deck, group 2 review deck. But if you're just doing this as a whole for a whole group as a teacher, just save it on your computer as review deck. And then so this week, say I did un and miss. Okay, well next week, if I'm going to do ED, then all I have to do is go pull up that PowerPoint, throw some of the words in there, and it's done. I'm telling you, this saved me so much time this year. I can't even tell you how much time I spent trying to make these PowerPoints on the fly this year because my kids needed them. And now that they are done, like it's like I can breathe easy because I can make this within like a minute or two. It makes my life so much easier. And I hope it can do the same for you. So just keep in mind when you're having them read this, you want to keep talking about meaning. So if I was asking them about unfolding, you know, I'd say, okay, well, what does un mean? Okay, well, un means not. So not folding, well, we don't talk about it's not folding. We talk about how it's like kind of like fallen apart, like it's no longer folded. So review decks are one way that we can review reading. This is not the only way that I review reading. The other way that I wanted to share with you is Fluency Grids. I know a lot of you are familiar with Fluency Grids from the single sound symbol correspondence level, right? But I have also made, I looked at it today, 132 of these for multisyllabic words. So I have a Dropbox link for you that will give you a blank template. So say you don't want to purchase them, and that is totally fine. I have made you a Dropbox link. And in this Dropbox link, you will have a blank Fluency Grid template. And I also put a little freebie in there too for you that I'm going to talk about here in a minute. So let me drop the link real quick to the Dropbox. So when you click on this, it is going to automatically download the file to your computer. So it will automatically download it. I did it that way so that you wouldn't have to like go through Dropbox. So there's going to be 3 things inside of it. There's going to be a link to all of the resources that I've talked about. There's going to be a blank Fluency Grid template. And then there's going to be the freebie that we'll go over in a minute. But I wanted to show you how I use Fluency Grids with multisyllabic words because it's a little bit different from how I use it with single syllable words. So this is a this is a Fluency Grid for the prefix con. Okay, this is one for the prefix con. The prefix con means together. So when I give my big kids one of these Fluency Grids, I don't want to just get to automaticity with the words. I also want to get to the word's meaning. So what you might have them do is when you first have this Fluency Grid, have them highlight the targeted morpheme. So everyone would highlight con. Okay, and then we do a couple of different things, kind of feel it out. So we might split it into syllables like conduct, conference, concentrate, concert. So we might do like that, but something that I'm always doing the first time we do this is talking about meaning. So I might say that to them, okay, well, the root duct means to lead. So what does a conductor have to do with leading together? And then they would have to talk about, oh, well, a conductor is one who leads an orchestra together, right? So then conference, okay, well, what does a parent-teacher conference have to do with together? And we would talk about, oh, okay, well, it is your parents and your teachers coming together to talk about you. I just looked up the etymology of concentrate. I love this one, actually. So concentrate literally means to come together in the center. So you could ask them something like, oh, well, what does concentrate have to do with coming together in the center? And they're like, oh, it's talking about your brain. And so sometimes we do little, I know this looks like a cloud. I don't know how to draw a blank brain, y'all. Got a little thing there. But so we could draw a little picture to go with it to help us remember. Like concert, maybe we draw a music note. A conclusion, maybe we even write words like, oh, the end, right? So I'm doing these so that I can get at both the meaning and what the words are. Have any of you used Fluency Grids for single syllable words? Because this one is kind of a little bit different how I use it. I'm going to keep talking, but I'll look at the chat to see if anybody speaks up. So concur. Oh, and I just looked up cur. So concur, if we are concurring about something, what are we doing? We're agreeing, right? Like we're coming together to agree on something. Now, my favorite one to talk about is Congress. Congress literally means to walk together. So then you could think, okay, well, what does a Congress walk together for? Oh, well, they walk together for the sake of the people. And you could also then talk about how like a group of baboons is called a Congress. And then after I do that, I ask them to read the rows. So I might say, okay, well, Sarah, Mike, and Eric, I want you to read the white rows. And then Lacey, Merlin, and Maya, I just literally named my cats and dogs, you're going to read the gray rows. And that's what I do for Fluency Grids. Yes, I love using them. So when I'm using the single syllable ones, I'm really trying to get to the number of repetitions that they need in order to reach automaticity. But with multisyllabic Fluency Grids, in a way, it's kind of a little bit of a different thing. And I'm using it more to get towards meaning. So we can think about, okay, anytime that we see con, we know that it's going to be something to do with coming together. Okay. So that is our Fluency Grids. Now, I don't do Fluency Grids and review decks in the same time for reviewing because I want to keep it like Anita Archer says, you want to have a perky pace. So I kind of just choose one. Either I'm going to do review decks or I'm going to do Fluency Grids, and I kind of flip-flop between the two. Now let's talk about spelling practices. So I'm doing this presentation tomorrow as well, but I'm doing it tomorrow for K through 2. And I realized like, oh my gosh, like I have so few spelling practices for morphology than I do for K through 2. And I think it just really hones in on the fact that we are not talking about this enough. You know, there's just not enough out there for morphology. It's almost like as soon as we get to 3rd grade, we expect children to be able to read any word that comes in front of us. And we don't think about how they still need this explicit instruction once they get to multisyllabic words. You know, just because you can read any single syllable word doesn't mean that you are then able to figure out multisyllabic words. So let's go over 2 different spelling practices. The first one is just basic dictation, okay? When I was going through college and I was learning about Writer's Workshop, it was like a cardinal sin to tell children what to write. It really was. Like you would not dare tell children what they need to write. And so I really had to do some unlearning and recognize that if we want children to be proficient in the skills that we are teaching them, we've got to make sure that they're practicing it. And something else that I want to mention too is when you are teaching a new rule, so say you teach a new rule on Monday, you don't need to spend Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday just teaching that rule. Once they have been introduced to it, start putting that new rule into the context of the things that you've already learned. So here's a great example from like the K through 2 world. So say you just taught them magic E. And saying Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, all you've done is teach them magic E. Well, guess what? All of a sudden, every single word that you come across that they're reading and spelling is going to have a magic E on it, right? So we really have to make sure that we are couching the new skills in relation to the old ones that we've already taught them. So when I'm doing dictation, so say I just taught able yesterday. Okay, well, I'm going to do able today, and I might do a couple extra, but I'm going to mix it in with everything we've already learned. So when I'm doing dictation, even with the big kids, I start with the ABCs. So I will say this for 3 through 5, if you teach cursive, you can have them do it in cursive. I did not have them do it in cursive until they knew all of their letters. So why are we going to have 11, 12-year-old children write the ABCs? Because they don't know. You will be shocked. I am forever having people message me saying, oh my gosh, it took my 5th graders 10 minutes to write the ABCs. If your children cannot write the ABCs without a visual prompt easily, then they can't write the ABCs. We have them do it lowercase because 97% of the letters that we write are lowercase. So when I'm having my kids do dictation in small groups, so you might want to do this in small group, this part, or you could do it whole group. You figure out where your time works. But I have them do A through M on one line and then N through Z on the other. For the little kids, this is really important because it breaks up LMNOP, right? But for the big kids, it's also important just so that you are able to monitor them while they are doing it to see how their letter formation is. Personally, once my kids hit 3rd grade, if they have poor letter formation, I'm not trying to fix it unless it's illegible because they've already had multiple years of doing it the wrong way. So instead, what I do then is I shift over to cursive, and I've seen a lot of success with students learning cursive. So back to the dictation. All I do is I have them write 1 through 5. The first 4 words are going to be review words of all the different things we've learned. Maybe it's ing, maybe it's ed. And then the 5th one I often do is a sentence. So one thing that I started doing last year too is this, and it was really cool to see how it worked. So, you know, I might have my kids write the word hope. And if you do this, you're going to end up having more words. But this is almost like a word chain, but for morphology. So then I would say, okay, well now, you know, let me go ahead and pull up a blank Word document so I can show you. So I would have them write hope. And then I would say something along the lines of, okay, well now I want you to write hope, but I want you to make it past tense. And they would have to write hoped. Okay, now I want you to write hope, but I want you to make it present. And they would write hoping. Okay, now I want you to write hope, but can you make it a word that means you are full of hope? And they would write hopeful. Then maybe you go into hopeless, right? And so you can do this so that they can have the different verb tenses that you have been teaching them too. And my kids really loved it. They really loved to be able to figure out what the meaning part was that they were moving towards. All right. So even if it is just as simple as giving them a little notebook and having them, trying to find I lost my presentation, y'all. There we go. I think that's it. Okay. So even if it's just you giving them a notebook and giving them a couple of words, just making sure that they are able to have practice reading and spelling the words with the morphemes that you have taught them. Now, the other one that I wanted to share with y'all was mapping morphemes. So this is the freebie that's in that Dropbox link that I sent to y'all, and I'm going to drop the Dropbox link again. So I know a lot of you probably already have this. Sorry about that. But so someone asked if I do dictation every single day. So I am going to be honest with you. No, I don't. Because I spend so much of their time writing about what they are reading, I try to be mindful of how much writing I'm asking them to do. So if I know that there's going to be like a heavy writing period when we're reading, then I'm not going to do this that day simply for time and for the sake of my kids' hands. But if I know that it's a day where we're not having like a heavy writing prompt, then absolutely. I would shoot to do this at least a few times a week though. So, but here's the deal. If you're not doing any dictation, maybe just try to start incorporating it twice a week. And seriously, whole group, it could be as simple as 1 through 5. We're going to go over these. I'm going to give you a word and I want you to do it. And it's different from just practicing the current skills. And that's kind of what I want to get at. So say you spend every day of the week practicing their spelling words, take that same amount of time that you have for practicing their spelling words and make sure that in like flip it, instead of just focusing on their current words, incorporate all of the ones that you've already done. So I know that a lot of you use these sheets for single sound symbol correspondences. Like if I said green, you'd go green and you would have 4 boxes, right? But then I will have people ask me, okay, well, how would I map out unhelpful? And I'm just like, make sure that once you are getting to multisyllabic words, we are no longer mapping them at the single sound level. Think about how horrifying it would be for a child to have to map out maladjusted with individual sound boxes. So once you get to multisyllabic words, you can use this to map out syllables. So you would say a word, you ask them to tap the syllables. I don't like clapping because my kids, when you clap, I find they clap onset rhymes. So like if I said flag, they would say full ag. So I like the chin drop trick. I feel like that works a lot better. But you ask them to count the number of syllables, and then that is going to become how many boxes they use. You're going to notice that this piece of paper has a couple of stars by it. So does anybody see what the issue is on this one with mapping it by syllables with number 2? I'm going to give you a second to see if you can see what the issue is. No takers. Oh, yes. Lacey said able. Yeah. So here's the deal. Able is technically 2 syllables, but I chose to keep it in one box because I want to preserve the meaning. So here's the deal. If your kids write able as 2 syllables, have them think about, hey, well, don't we know a suffix that means you're able to? I want us to preserve meaning over all else. The rest of it, I feel like, is just like nitpicky stuff, right? Like, because we want them to look at able and know, hey, able means you are able to, right? It's not the syllabication that matters as much as the meaning. And then like down here with the eruption, technically shun, the T would go with this. But here's the deal. If my kids know shun means the act of, and they keep it together, think how incredible that is, right? Like, how wonderful would it be if a kid was able to recognize shun meaning the act of? So yes, technically it's rupt with the T here, but I think we just want to make sure that we're always getting back to meaning with it. Okay, so like I said, at the end of the day, I want you to always stop and ask, are they reading and are they spelling enough to reach automaticity? So before I let you go, I promised that we would do a giveaway. So I'm going to remind you of all of the different things that we talked about today. So for reading, we talked about the sound decks, look at me, I can remember. We talked about the sound decks, the fluency decks, and the fluency grids and the review decks. So those are 3 ways that I review reading. The sound decks I do every day. Then for spelling, we can do dictation, or we could also use mapping morphemes. So I would love to know in the comments, somebody in the comments is going to get a $25 Amazon gift card for me because we're teachers about to go to school and we need all the things. What are you going to incorporate? Like if you could choose one thing that I talked to you about tonight, what would it be that you would want to incorporate? And while y'all are doing that, I'm going to go ahead and drop that Dropbox link one more time. Yeah, Fluency Grids. Fluency Grids are so nice. Yay. I love hearing all of these comments. Sorry, there's comments on I have comments on Zoom and in Facebook. And yes, I'm trying to keep up with both of them. All right, I am just going to randomly choose somebody. Jenny Lambert. Jenny, I need you to email me your, not even email me, you can DM me, email me, whatever. Private message me your email and I'll send that gift card to you, okay? And just remember, y'all, all of my fluency grids, the review decks are all 20% off right now. They will save you a lot of time. The sound decks are free. And then the sound mapping sheets I've put inside of that Dropbox for you, okay? I am so grateful for y'all. And if you need me, please reach out to me. You can email me, campbellcreatesreaders@gmail.com. You can DM me on Instagram. I'm here for you. I know how difficult it is to be a teacher, and I know how it feels to be alone in this. So if you feel alone in this, please reach out to me. I'll be your friend. Thank you guys so much. Thank you guys for giving me good comments. I've been very stressed about this. Very stressed all the time. Like right now, I don't know how to end this.